So welcome to our CCNA Cyberops, not CCNA Cyberops, Cyberops Associate. I keep calling it CCNA Cyberops, but it's no longer CCNA Cyberops. It's just Cyberops Associate class meeting. I want to do a couple things. I do want to review for you very quickly how to do a reservation on Netlabs, just in case you haven't done it. And I also want to make sure everyone can get into the system. So if you're not able to get into Netlabs, it's very important that you get into it as soon as you can and let me know that you're in so that we can start doing labs. But it's really very easy because when you log in, you will have an item. I've already made 2 reservations for today that I'm going to show you some parts of labs. But new lab reservation, schedule a lab for myself, and you won't have these 6,000 classes that I have. You should probably only see 1 or 2 classes, depending upon whether or not we've accidentally left you in some classes from other classes you've been in. Also, one thing I will mention while I'm here, any of you that are at a Cisco Academy that we support, as part of your professional development, we will give you free access to a class that is called CCNA All Curriculums. And it actually has CCNA 1, 2, and 3. It has the CyberOps labs in it. It has even, I believe, the CCNP labs may be in there. I don't know if they're in there or not. But basically, as an instructor at one of our supported academies, that's part of our contract with your school. We will give you access for free for your professional development. Now, that particular course is not designed for you to use for your students. But if you do need to use our system for your students, I have 2 ways you can do that. One is I give it away. If your school doesn't have the money to pay for it, as long as you don't have 16,000 students, we have a system and a way in place for it to give you an instructor level account and to give your students a class. They can actually do the labs on our systems. And this is for the real gear, or it is for the CyberOps class. So either one. The other thing I do have away now is we do actually have in place an MOU to where we can sell access to our Netlabs. And what we do is we sell a single seat for a student for the entire semester for $35 per class. Only reason I've done that is for a couple of reasons. One, I do have some schools that actually have been using it and have come to me and said, hey, we would like to pay you a little something for it or like to pay for it. We budgeted for it. Well, hey, I'll take the money because I use that money to supplement small schools that can't afford to pay. So if your school is able to pay, even if it's for, I give you 50 seats and you pay for 5 seats, every little bit will help support so that I can continue to give away access for free. As you know, the equipment's not free, and I actually pay, believe it or not, this sounds nuts, but I pay almost $24,000 a year just in my support services for my data center, which is air conditionings, UPSs, and generators being serviced twice a year. So it's a little bit nuts, but if you want or need access for your classes, again, we'll do everything we can to help you. If you can't pay for it, we'll try our best to give it to you for free. If you can chip some money in, then I'm kind of doing this on a pay what you can basis. So, if you can budget a little bit, that would help too. So that's the infomercial portion of today's lesson. I will tell you something else I'm getting ready to do. I'm getting ready to buy Cisco Modeling Labs, and I'm getting ready to buy 20 license for CML. It's called CML Education, and I've run some beta test on that. So we may be looking for some schools to help us beta using CML in CCNA and CCNP classes that you may be offering. So just throwing that out there that's down the road summerish that we're looking for that. So, but you logged into Netlabs, you did schedule yourself a lab, you find your class, and then in our class we have 2 things. For right now, ignore the bottom one because this is the hands-on skills assessment you will do at the end of class. So just ignore that one for now. But if you click on just V1, you'll see all the labs that you can do inside of Netlabs, which is a good number. You will click on the lab that you want to do. You will find a pod. Now notice it looks like there's only 4 pods, but I reiterate this once again, we have 20 pods, folks. So make sure you click the little arrow here to go all the way out because we have 20 pods, not 4. So don't feel like you go in here and say, well, they're all in use, because you can see today, this has been used pretty good today. I mean, there's been a fair number of reservations made. So, all right, so that's causing problems there. So let's go back over here and Okay, so pick yourself a pod, find a pod, and I usually go out here a little bit further. The red line is right now, so you can schedule a lab for right now, or if you want, you can schedule labs in the future. So always be aware, you can schedule the lab for times in the future if you know you're going to have time, say at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday. You could schedule your labs then. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and schedule it for right now. And you can have a maximum of 4 hours for the labs. So you can do up to 4 hours. So just pick your time, click submit. And at this point, you will see the lab will be right here inside of your lab listings, and you will enter lab and you will actually see it starting to boot up. So it's initializing the pod. And during this time, it's sitting there spinning up whatever virtual machines are needed to do this particular lab. So most of these labs either spin up a single workstation, either a Linux or a Windows workstation, one of the two, depending on what you're doing. Later labs may spin up more than just one machine. So that's something to keep in mind for that. Any questions on how to do a reservation to get yourself a lab?
Hey, I have a question. So
Yep.
far, all the labs I have done, I never used that. I used the virtual machine we created.
Okay, that's fine. If you're using your local virtual machines, that is perfectly fine.
Is it? But for the now on, I will go there. And how do you know that which lab is supposed to be on the Netlab? Does it say in the PDF file or?
It says in the I put it in the syllabus. The syllabus lists the ones.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
The syllabus lists the ones that are Netlabs. Now, I will tell you, all these labs that are on Netlabs can be done on your local virtual machine that you loaded locally. So if you're going to teach that way, if you're going to teach using the local machines, use that to do your labs. Okay, you don't have to use my Netlabs. This is only if you don't have a way to run it locally.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, I will tell you this, if you do Netlabs, make sure you use this file or the file from inside of the lab, because it has been updated for use. So make sure when you do a lab in Netlabs, you use the lab in the content file. I have to stress that over and over because it is different from the one that's in the curriculum. But if you're doing them locally on your own machines, use the one directly out of the curriculum.
Oh, okay. So that's what I did so far. So I will try this one as well. Okay.
Yeah, and it's nice to do both, because you may run into a situation where you have a student who can't run for whatever reason the VMs locally. And if you have that, then we can give you access and let your students access our system and do that. Okay. Any questions? Any questions about the lab environment? We'll come back to it here shortly. I'm actually going to end this reservation because it was just an example reservation, not one I wanted to actually show you. Okay, so our two modules for this semester, or not semester, this week, are really very easy modules. In fact, I mentioned to you earlier that this is the least Cisco class you've ever seen. There's almost nothing in this entire chapter that has anything to do with Cisco. In fact, this is a Windows 10 and a Windows Server course right here, 100%. Looking at the different commands that we use at the command line, looking at our different Windows versions, way back, all the way back, they say Windows 7. I go back to, I remember standing in line at a CompUSA at midnight to buy Windows 95. Because I can remember when it was released and how big a deal that was way back in the day. You're definitely a geek if you've done that. In fact, I bought, God, what was that IBM operating system they had there for a while that had a GUI interface? Oh, can't remember. I've been hit by a truck. That's my excuse. Cannot remember the name of it.
Are you thinking about OS2?
OS2. Yep, that's it. That's it. I remember using it too. Yeah, there you go. That's old school there. I do like this chapter for a couple reasons. And one of the reasons I like it is this, and that is talking about if someone has not had a Windows class, going and talking to them about the difference between user mode and kernel mode, and talking about the old days when programs were allowed to run with higher level privileges in the kernel mode, and how they could actually lock up a system because instead of preemptive multitasking, cooperative multitasking, and how that could lock up a system back in the old days. Say what, Ernie?
Blue screen.
Oh yeah, the old blue screen of death. But talking about the hardware abstraction layer and how this sits between the hardware and the kernel mode device drivers and other operating system kernel mode and items. Kind of neat. It's also interesting to talk about how in the security world, if you can manage to infiltrate a kernel mode item, how much more dangerous that is and how much that gives you control of the system. And so they're talking here about your user mode and kernel mode. Again, most of this you should probably already know about, talking about NTFS, FAT, the old HFS Plus, which is Mac OS. I don't think anybody really has any big questions for that. This is kind of neat here, how you can hide files in NTFS using alternate data streams. So that's a neat thing you can do. It's a built-in feature of NTFS. This one, the boot process, you know, I have not had taken a Windows exam in a very long time, but I do remember back in the old day, we had to know this backwards and forwards in order to pass a lot of the, especially the workstation-based exams. It's my understanding that Microsoft has kind of butchered their certification program right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know 2 years ago at NCCIA, right before COVID hit, they had just changed their program and nobody was happy with it. So I don't really know where it stands at this point. I hate to say it, and I know this is being recorded, but I'm going to say it anyway, but we once were interviewing people for Windows administrators jobs, and they had MCSEs and they couldn't create user accounts or set permissions. And it was at that point that I basically said, those certifications are worthless and I will never get them again. So unless they've improved, at that time they were just paper. So it didn't have any validity in the workplace. Maybe they're better now, and I hope they are. So I can't say that they're not there that way now, but I will tell you this, one of the things I have seen problems with, and maybe some of you've seen it before too, I've had a lot of issues with hibernation on devices that hibernate and never come back up or never want to come back up and just cause a lot of trouble. In fact, I was doing an update on a machine and restoring it to factory defaults, and it got the Windows screen up, and then it went to hibernation mode, and I never got it back out of it. So it was very, very aggravating. So this WinResume exe and Hyberfield has some issues. Let's just put it that way. And I think part of that is because of the way it interacts with the BIOS on the machines, because the BIOS has to support that hibernation features, and not all of them are either doing it correctly or doing it in a manner that's working well with the hibernation features of Windows. Have any of you loaded Windows 11? You have? Okay, Jerry. I know my coworker loaded it, and he's pretty pleased with it. I mean, he said it's pretty, knock on wood, been stable, not caused any issues. So I may eventually go there. Yes.
You may not have seen this, but yesterday a news article came out that Microsoft is not going to allow Windows 11 on systems that don't have an internet connection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's the bomb they dropped. Did you see that? Yeah, I saw.
No, I haven't seen that. Wow.
Yeah, it's a bomb, I'll tell you. From
Windows 11 requires
an internet connection. Now there's going to be, obviously enterprises are going to have a problem with that.
Oh yeah.
And
well, it's going to require a Microsoft account.
They're going to require a Microsoft account, but they also said that there would have to be an internet connection at installation.
Okay.
And there was some discussion about exactly what they would require after installation.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's going to be a big issue.
Yeah, I thought so.
That's going to be a big issue. Well, might want to sell your Microsoft stock. I'm just kidding.
Sometimes they throw this stuff out there though to just test the waters, and then they retract it. So
yeah.
Who knows?
I agree with that, because they get scared once everybody starts pushing back. And I guarantee you, all you have to do is watch the U.S. government. The government is a huge Microsoft. People don't realize how big a Microsoft account they are. If the government says no, we're not going to do this, it'll be changed, because the government buys so much of their stuff. and for good or ill, depending on, you know, we're not going to talk politics, obviously, but there's been a lot of companies that have started not working with the government, but Microsoft is continuing to work with them. And so that's an interesting thing there too. But so Windows, oh, go ahead, Ernie.
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk a little bit, not a little bit, but a good amount, a bit about is these processes, threads, and services. So a process is it's kind of like a portion of an application or a programmability part of an application that's running. So Windows applications can have more than one process, and then processes are made up of threads. And then the threads, and again, by the way, the process can have multiple threads, and then those are executed. Now, one of the things we can do is we can look at a task manager and we can see what's running on a particular machine. So here you can see a bunch of the things that are running on my machine right now. We can look at how much CPU is being used. Under details, we can actually see now the PID or the process ID. So that's the actual process ID of what is running. You'll notice, even though I've only got Chrome up and got I've actually got 4 tabs open right now. You can see all of these Chrome processes that are running. So that's one thing that a lot of people have been complaining about lately, is that when you open multiple Chrome browsers, it opens a huge number of Chrome.exe and is using, I mean, that's a fair amount of memory when you start looking at all the memory that's being used by Chrome. This is a way, though, that if a poorly written piece of malware is actually dumb enough to show itself as a process, you could go into Task Manager and possibly see it. You can at least relate going into a command prompt. So you go into a command prompt and you type netstat -ANO. It'll show you all the different connections that are going on, and it will show you the PIDs for those connections. Okay, so I can see that I'm listening on port 135 with a PID of 1076. So I can go over here and put them in order and find PID 1076 and see that that is a service host, which is a built-in Windows service that is running. And so you're able to look and see, you know, depending on here, what's listening. Again, a good piece of malware would never show itself in Netstat, and it would never show itself in Task Manager. It's typically only a way to see what's running on a system that is a legitimate piece of software. The other thing I like to teach people to do is to learn how many processes normally run on their system and what runs on it. You know, if you spend as much time in front of computers as we do, if my system slows down just a little bit, I notice it. You know, and I'm sure you're the same way. You spend so much time in front of your computer that the least little thing, you're like, man, this thing's just a little sluggish or something. And then I actually will go in and look at the processes and see what's running under details and say, okay, what in the world is going on here? Have I got something new on? But you can see I've got a killer amount of processes running on this system, just because of all the different things I've got running in the background and all the stuff that's running on it. So let's see, Windows Firewall, obviously Windows Defender Firewall. A lot of people, quite honestly, I've gone now to running Windows Defender, and a lot of it's built-in antivirus as my main antivirus on some systems, most systems actually, which is not a great idea because it being integrated into the operating system means it's a little easier to bypass. But for some simplicity's sake and for the fact that it doesn't cost anything, I've started doing that. What do you use? What do y'all use for your antivirus and anti-malware? Ernie, what do you use? And you're muted. Sorry.
You're
I
talking
use
about
the same thing.
You
Same
same
thing.
thing. Windows Defender?
Yeah, pretty much rely on Windows.
Okay. How about you, Uzma?
That was McAfee.
McAfee. Okay. Kalinga?
McAfee.
Do what? McAfee? McAfee.
Yes.
Okay. And Jared, what do you use?
It is for my home computer. You are talking about the home computer, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
I said, what do you use for your antivirus?
Norton 360.
Norton 360. Okay.
Yeah.
I've used about all of them, and like I said, I pretty much settled now on just Windows Defender, just because I'm a little lazy, I guess. But it also works well, and it's from everything I've been reading, it's not too bad. This is something I remember from something in that resulted in a certification. So I remember being asked about the 5 hives of the registry in some form or fashion, and it is, I believe, in your actual exam items you need to know. So the different hives that you have here, and then inside of each one of these, you have your keys, your registry keys, and values. One thing that you need to teach students is, it's so funny because in all the Microsoft classes, it says, now here's how you edit the registry. Now never edit the registry. But there are times when you have to go in and edit the registry. In fact, a lot of times, especially with security stuff, I had to do when I was trying to remove an antivirus that I was using, I had to go into the registry and clean a lot of stuff up because it would not get rid of some stuff inside the registry. So knowing what the registry is very important to understanding Windows. Now, I believe I've got a different lab there, different than that one. So, but let's keep going here, looking at different. Run as administrator. Good security practice, as you all know, is do not use an administrator account. Run with one with lower privileges and then escalate your privileges. In Windows, you right click and run as administrator to escalate privileges, or you let user access control prompt you to escalate privileges. In Windows, the command, not Windows, but in Linux, what is the command to escalate to root privileges? Anybody? In Linux, what's the command to get root?
Is it sudo?
Sudo. Yep, sudo. So you type sudo dash, and then you can do it that way. So very good. So local users, this is where you don't have a domain, so you're creating your users locally. One of the things I teach my students is, number one, you cannot delete the built-in administrator account, but you can rename it. So I rename my administrator account to a different name. The reason being, and then I create an administrator account that is a non-functioning account that is disabled. And then I also typically create a second administrator account that I can use. That way, if I ever see anybody trying to log in as an administrator, I immediately know that they are trying to get in as admin, but it's not me because I don't use that account. So now I do know 100% that that's not really a security feature, because you can, if you enumerate the database, you can still see who is the administrator and see what the name is associated with it. But it's just one of those things that we talk about security as an onion, you know, trying to make it where you peel each layer and make them cry as much as possible. Well, the hope is it's just like a security system on your house. Its only function is to make them go to your neighbors who doesn't have a security system. So you're not going to stop a determined person from getting in, but you're going to make their life a little bit harder. We'll show PowerShell here in a minute. I'm actually working on, well, I'm not personally working on it, but I'm working with someone to create, in fact, it's Randy, you know, Randy Gamble there, Jerry. Randy is working on our systems, and we've created for him a PowerShell pod for Netlabs. And we are going to hopefully start offering that class through our IT Academy, because I have a lot of people interested in PowerShell. So I want to teach that because I think it's a very, very good skill for your students to have. And your Windows admins, because it saves them so much time when they're doing things like creating accounts and just doing typical day-to-day management. Anybody in here an expert with PowerShell? I'm definitely not.
I'm not, but what I can see that when the new Windows version comes, they add more and more PowerShell commands.
Yes.
I can see that. They always increase in number of PowerShell commands. That I have seen.
Unless I think someone told me and I read, now this may not be true, but I think it is now, that you can do everything in PowerShell you can do in the GUI. That's my understanding, is it's possible to do it. But is that what you've heard, Ernie?
Allegedly, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly. Allegedly, that's what I've been told, and that's what I've read. So
Yeah.
that's that, and I think that's what they've been trying to get to, that ability to do anything.
Well, they've been trying to catch up to Linux. That was,
Yeah.
you know, that was their deal. So
Now, one thing I will tell you is in our labs, so when I go over here to Netlabs, you will notice that when I go into the using PowerShell, this is actually, and I did change the size of the display. I changed it to 1024 by 768 just because it was so huge. But this is, instead of being a Windows workstation box, it's a server box, and that is because of licensing. It is much cheaper to put server on a Netlabs system than it is to put Windows, because the SPA fees are actually cheaper for server than Windows, which sounds crazy, but it is true. But if you go in here and you type PowerShell, it will pop up PowerShell, and you're inside of PowerShell. This particular lab has you doing things like looking at the alias for the directory. So getting directory for the alias, looking at the Netstat command inside of PowerShell, and then doing, netstat-abno, which shows you just some of the switches for Netstat, and mapping basically what I told you we did earlier, which is if you go in here, if you do a Netstat-ANO on this system, you can see all the different connections and their PIDs. And if you go into Task Manager and you go to Details, you can do the same thing. You can map the PIDs, and I've already been in this one. That's why these are in order. But you can map the PIDs to the process. And so you could go, okay, what's process 4's system? I will tell you a neat thing. If you're actually connected online, you can right click and you can search online, and it will search online and tell you what that particular thing is doing. So like on mine down here, I actually have the ability to say in this nvdisplay.container.exe, I right click, do search online. It'll pop open and tell me what does it do. It was initially by NVIDIA to control their control panel, to power the control panel, verify the process. So it will actually tell you exactly what it does. So if you are on an internet connected machine, it's kind of neat that you can go in here and just very quickly search online and see what that particular item is. Because if you do start seeing strange things in here, and you don't know what they are, then it's a good idea to go in here and search for them online and see if you can figure out, this is, by the way, okay, part of Microsoft OneDrive. Yeah, OneDrive's installed on my system, so I wouldn't get too worried about it. But that is a neat feature that a lot of people don't know about, is to be able to search directly from Task Manager. Okay. And I'll close this and this and this and go back over here. Okay. Again, PowerShell is really just a programmable interface. One of the things we did in Skills USA that they made all the people do is create hundreds of user accounts using a PowerShell script. So you can even drop scripts into PowerShell. So it makes it extremely useful for those types of things. And again, like Ernie said, I think it's trying to get to that same compatibility as what you can do with Linux. Plus, they have developed a headless Windows server, so a GUI-less Windows server that you can deploy. And so they're wanting you to be able to do the management of that server from a command line. So the PowerShell had to be developed to the level that it could do that. Any questions on PowerShell? Okay. We talked a little bit about the Netstat command, which shows you all the open communications for, you can do both TCP and UDP. You can do all of them. So this allows you to look at what's actually the local TCP IP address, the foreign address, and what its state is. Now, of course, it would have to have a state, so it's going to be something that maintains an active state. Event viewer, I'm not going to spend much time on that because I think all of you know what event viewer is and how it works. Update management. One of the things that most enterprises do today is they now have a SUS server, or a software update server, that is local. And then that SUS server will pull down, instead of all your machines on your campus going out to Microsoft's update servers, you pull down the updates to your local SUS servers. And I think it's still called SUS. I may have a different name for it now, but I've always called it SUS. But those servers, then your machines grab their updates from that local SUS server when you push them out. It's also a way for enterprises to basically use group policies inside of Windows to say, don't go out and check for updates on the update servers. And don't automatically deploy your updates. Get them from our SUS server. And then that way the IT department can test updates. It wasn't too long ago, Windows put out an update that was killing machines, was actually corrupting them and taking them down. So that is one thing that you definitely have. We also have what are called security policies, local security policies, where you can set password length, number of times between login attempts, number of max login attempts. One of the things we have actually learned is that one of the settings you can have is lock someone out permanently after X number of login attempts that have failed. But you got to think about it. If you do that, you're actually setting up a way for someone to denial of service your entire network. Because if I figure out your usernames and a way to send an automated script to try to log in 3 different times, and let's say you then lock them out permanently, I could keep running that script and locking your accounts out, and you would be unable to get into your systems. So now the admin account can't be done that way. But if I could do that for your 2,000 user accounts, that can make life for you very, very bad. Give you a bad day, let's just say. All right, any other questions on Windows? I think most of you are very familiar with Windows, so I don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this lab because the lab is, again, fairly easy. I did like this one. So I went in here to this client and I just said, okay, let's create a file or a folder. Let's create a file. Okay, and then let's throw them away. So we throw them up here and throw them in the recycling bin. And then from here, you can do the clear. And you can recycle. Oh, I got to remember the command clear. Oop, I can't type. Dash recycle bin. I knew I'd figure it out here. But you can actually hit question mark, not question mark. You can actually hit tab and it will do the most recent one. So let's do, there's recycle bin. So if I do that and I actually hit RE, and then it's somewhat like the Cisco iOS in that it will put in what it knows if it's not, if it is not ambiguous. Then it says, are you sure you want to? And then watch up here, watch the recycling bin. You can watch how fast it does it. Boom, it empties it. So just a little thing. You can do all kind of stuff from here. I don't really think that will work from inside of here. But there is ways to do help inside of here to give you help. And you can also do help on different commands inside of here. So do the lab on it, and I think you will, again, we're going to soon have a PowerShell class that we're going to offer. It's not through NetAcad. It is a class completely created by, honestly, one of our adjunct instructors that we're going to use. Now, one thing I will tell you, you'll notice there are a pretty good number of labs on the section for Windows. So if you do go in here and you're doing the Windows labs, feel free to do them there on your local machine, or feel free to do them inside of our in ours, because there's one looking at the registry, looking at processes, PowerShell, Task Manager, and monitoring and managing resources. So there's a good number of labs. Now let's move on to Linux, which I am not an expert in Linux, but I will tell you this. One of the things that I always tell anybody in security is you better learn Linux. In fact, I would say, as per our discussion last week, Cisco 1 and 2, or at least Cisco 1 minimum before taking this class. And I actually would strongly recommend Linux Essentials before you take this class. I think that would be, if you had Cisco 1 or Networking Essentials, I prefer Cisco 1, but either one, and you had Linux Essentials, I think you would be prepared to take this class because we're doing a lot with Linux in this particular course. So this give you the basics. It's free, as in beer. That's the old joke. The Linux shell, talking about using the CLI and using the shell. The basic commands, move, chmod, chown, all of these are in here. All of these, if you've been through Linux Essentials, you would be very familiar with. So it would not be anything that would stretch your students. They take you through a whole section on working on text files using Nano or whatever your text editor of choice. Everybody's got their own. So it is definitely one of those things that everyone has their own. Different clients, talking about different clients and ports. Obviously, your students should already know if they had Cisco 1 and 2, or at least Cisco 1. They should know about the different ports. We'll keep going here. Basic server admin, looking at different types of config files and how everything in Linux is basically a file and a config file, or has config files with it. One of my main complaints about Linux, and I know this is a lame complaint, but stuff moves all the time, and that aggravates the ever living poop out of me. You know, one version of Nginx, it's going to be in this, and the next version it's in this, or the Nginx comp file. It was at the top of the comp file, now it's at the bottom, or they've changed the name. Just leave the dang thing, you know, have some semblance of consistency. And there is some consistency. I'm being a little bit facetious, but at the same time, I do think you have to teach your students that Linux is bad to move things and change things, and not tell you. You know, not even really let you know unless you dig deep into the files that say, oh yeah, by the way, we moved this here. Crap. So it is a little bit of a problem. There's snort, there's hardening devices, different application logs, event logs, service logs, all those. And they talk about these different logs and where they're at. I've been deep in log messages for Palo Alto firewalls for the past week because we got a firewall that's stuck in a reboot loop. So we've been digging through var logs, trying to figure out why it's doing that. But in a general Linux, you've got var log messages, you got var log auth log, var log secure, boot. All of these are in here. Again, I'm not going to read to you. You can read. We'll look at it. The Linux file system is important for them to understand: ext, x3, x4, NFS. But more than that, probably the fact that how the file system has its hierarchical structure and the different roles and permissions. I can't stress again enough how important taking Linux Essentials before this is, because it will really help you so that you already understand all this. I don't honestly think this course has enough material in it for you to understand the Linux enough to do well in it. So if your students have not had Linux Essentials, you may want to say, hey, guess what? My students have had Cisco 1. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and even 11, you can just about, I won't say don't do them, but you can about not even do those if they've had that. And so if they're weak on Linux, but they've had Cisco 1, why not, instead of covering 5 to 11 in a very detailed way, do Linux Essentials in there, or have them do sections of Linux Essentials? Because I think
Kelly,
that's
when we
go ahead, Ernie.
talk about North Carolina specifically, are we talking NOS 120?
Yes, sir. NOS 120.
Okay.
If they've been through any of the NOS 120 level course, they're good.
Okay.
Yeah. And I say Linux Essentials, but if they've had Red Hat 1, they're going to have the same, level of knowledge. You know, the files may be in a different place, but other than that, they're going to have the same knowledge.
Okay, thanks.
Any basic Linux class would give them this knowledge they need. Okay. Linux GUIs, which by their very nature, that's an evil sin, you know, but there are multiple GUIs, X Windows, GNU. I don't even know what the most common ones are today, because I haven't actually loaded a Windows or a Linux workstation in so long, an actual newest version. Installing apps using this apt-get, okay, or you can do the DP package, Debian package, Pacman with Arch Linux. So there's different ways to install packages, but this is a way to do updates, sudo apt-get update, which is with the, sorry y'all, actually that was Brian. Hold on one second, everybody. I do need to just I'm very sorry, everyone. I'm gonna stop the recording, pause. Okay, I'm back. I'm very sorry. I wouldn't normally do that in class, but with his father being in the hospital, I wanted to take it just to be careful. All right. So let's see here. Keeping system up to date. And again, here's your different types. You know, Arch Linux uses Pacman. We actually like to use Arch Linux inside of Netlabs a lot of times because it's so small and it's really good at being using a small amount of resources. We use it very often when we're building Netlabs pods. If we only need a machine to do a very specific task, plus they've actually made a little GUI interface and go on top of it. It makes it almost look exactly like a Windows box, which is really cool. So you get a GUI that students can use that has almost no resource intensive use at all. So that's really neat. So processes, instead of using Task Manager, you can use the thing like PS to see your processes. You can do malware does exist on a Linux host. Don't ever, I mean, it's just like a Mac. Everybody tells you, well, you can't get a virus on a Mac, or you can get you can get them on both. You can get them on everything. It comes down to if somebody wants to get in your system, they're probably going to get in it most of the time. So here's a popular program to check for rootkits, the rootkit, check rootkit, piping commands, ls-la, and then grep host. This lets you pop out and find just things. So all of that's really pretty much standard Linux items that you would see. Any questions? I want to pop over to the lab real quickly and just do one thing that was kind of fun. So I'm in here. Again, remember, if you're inside the lab, this is the Linux box that you've got here. Make sure you're using the content from the lab. Okay, so make sure you're using this one. But one of the cool things you can do, again, is, oops, hit it twice. If you get in here, you run sudo ps-elf, and it prompts you for the password. It's Cyberops, all lowercase. You notice how that kind of blew through very quickly and it was hard to read. Well, of course, you can do that and type it out to process.txt, hit enter, and then ls-la, and you can see that there's the file there. Then you can less process or more, either one. And then you can look at, you know, what's in the file itself. If you were looking for a particular item in it, you could grep it. So you could actually go through and grep. So let's quit this and let's do ls. Nope, sorry, brain fart. Grep bash. Man, I cannot type today. Okay. That pulls out the bash process in there. So, you know, just you can do a whole lot with this. By the way, you can do most of this in PowerShell too. Same types of things in PowerShell. So, but just neat things that your students need to learn. And as we move forward, we will continue to use Linux for many of our different labs. And everyone, that's pretty much those two modules. And I'm gonna be honest with you, as we look through these next ones here, we're not gonna have a whole lot to kind of go over because most of you understand ARP. Most of you, I hope. If you're in my classes, I really hope you understand ARP. I will blow through these modules as we continue to go through here. I will also mention to you again, and Klinga, this is for you. Here is the syllabus right here. So if you happen to go into class, it's right there. I do have the due dates in here for the different things. This week we're 3 and 4. And then next week is all of these 5, 6, 7, and 8. I really don't think you'll notice there's not very many labs at all for these. I don't think it's going to take you long to get through every single one of these. In fact, most of these you probably only have to read. You probably just be to click through them and be like, okay, I'm pretty much done with those. All right. Any questions?
Actually, the way I did in my local VM machine, when I do a step, I put the step number and highlight and put the screenshot on the Windows file. Everything has been documented. If I use the Netlab, do I need to do the same thing, or you can see what I did?
I cannot see what you did, but let me show you a little trick. This is a really neat thing I have turned on. I have turned on the ability for you to do screenshots inside of Netlabs. So if you do one of the process, one of the steps, just go up to the item and do take screenshot. And then you don't even have to put you don't have to put any notes on it at all. You can just do it and take submit, and that screenshot will then be with your lab, and I can see it.
Oh, okay.
So that way you don't have to take a screenshot and put it in your document. You can just, you've done step 2, you know, and if you wanted to, you could do that. You could go in here and say screenshot, excuse me, you could go take screenshot, and you could go at the end of step 2 and then submit. Now I've done this. I've only allowed you 15 screenshots for the class. I don't think there's anything that require more than that, but also this is something, if your students are using this system, you can have them do, you know, say after step 3, and then submit. The beauty is there's no way that their friend could just go and get that picture and give it to them, because this screenshot will only show up under their reservation with their user account that's been logged in. So unless someone has sat down at the system while the student with their username and password and logged in and done the lab, you know that student did the lab.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Which is very cool. All right. So I am going to end this reservation just so it frees up one of the slots for the next person. I actually think I've graded through all of the 2 labs, so I will wait a couple days. And again, Klinga, one of the things I mentioned last week, and everybody, I want to reiterate, due dates are not set in stone. If you miss a due date, I'm not going to have a heart attack. Okay. I do ask that when we get to the end of class, we try not to miss the end of class by more than 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks really. I can't officially, I won't be able to give you access to the Canvas area anymore, but really I usually can give you a little leeway on the end of the class. But with this class, I don't think we're going to need it. I think you'll be able to get through most of the content by the end date.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to stay a little bit, stay ahead. I start doing the module 5 already, so that if something happens on the way, so I'm okay, a little bit covered. You know?
Okay, and I do have a couple weeks out here toward the end when there are no labs due. There's 1 week, 3/28. There's no module labs, so you can catch up or work
so that we
ahead.
can have a break. Okay.
Yeah, or work ahead too, because one of the things that's important is these labs down here, labs 26.17 through 28.412, but these form the basis for your hands-on skills exam. So you really need to do all of these in order to be able to do the skills-based exam, the hands-on exam. So I strongly recommend you when you get there that you do every single one of these. The snort and firewall rules you'd be okay without, but a lot of these you're going to need for that hands-on exam. Okay. Any questions?
One other question.
Go ahead.
I think I can remember at the very first beginning of the lab, you want us to do a particular lab number 27 or something, some kind of coding. I did that. It was appearing there. I can't remember exactly what it is. It was there at the very first top on your required list. I can't remember what it is. I did it. If you go to my.
You talking about this lab right here, installing the virtual machines?
No, it is not.
No, no. The required assignment was inside of Canvas. That was the introductory assignment, and you did that. You're good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What you're referencing is this. You're referencing our Canvas system, and inside of Canvas, we have to, as part of the class, if you do not do the introduction assignment, this intro forum, if you don't do this, I'm required by our campus policy to drop you. But everybody's done it. Everyone has already done that, so you're fine. Yeah, you got the automatic lights.
I got my light off.
Yeah, that's funny. So I'm gonna stop share here, and actually, I think I got one I need to grade. It looks like one person needs to be graded.
Kelly, I got a quick question.
Go ahead.
On Packet Tracer.
Okay.
I started to think about doing the first lab using Packet Tracer, and I don't know if I did this right or not, or if I even should have done this. I downloaded it onto my own machine
Okay.
to do the labs, and I downloaded version 7 because I think somebody said something about making sure you use the old, or was that something different? What
That's
version of
something
Packet
different. I
Tracer?
would, for this class, it's really hard to do the labs in Packet Tracer because most of them are on a Linux box or a Windows box. But now if you're doing, there are Packet Tracer labs, and you can, you should be able to do them with the latest version. So 8.1, I believe is the latest version. It should work fine with it.
So I installed it. Should I watch that 2-hour video about how to learn how to use Packet Tracer? Because I'm clueless.
Yeah, then I would suggest doing it. Yeah, I would suggest.
Yeah, because I haven't used it before, to be honest
Okay,
with you.
okay, yeah, if you've never used Packet Tracer. Now in, let me share my screen again. In the class, there's not that many Packet Tracer labs.
Right.
There's not many at all in this class, but I would definitely suggest you go ahead and do that because the ones that are there, you're gonna need to know how to use Packet Tracer.
Right. That's why I decided to go ahead and do that first lab.
And you may
What is it,
find that
5?
you may actually find that you really like Packet Tracer and want to use it in some of your other classes. Because it's got some really
that was my other thought.
yeah, it's got some cool simulation stuff in it. Got some cool IoT stuff in it and everything. So yeah.
Okay.
Something else I'll show y'all if you haven't seen it, Skills for All. Skills for All, if you log in with your Netstat account, logged in here. I don't think they made it available yet that you can do it, but eventually we'll be able to create classes for our particular schools, and you'll be able to put classes in here. But inside of Skills for All, they've actually got a series of classes, and one of them is Packet Tracer, getting started with Packet Tracer, that 2-hour class, which is what you were going to go through, Ernie. They've also got a 3-hour course, exploring the Internet of Things with Cisco Packet Tracer, which is there. And then they've got cyber threat management, which is, they've got a couple actual there's actually on this Skills for All, a couple cyber security course and items that we don't even have inside of Netstat. So this network defense and endpoint security. So that's 40 hours. And then there's even an entire exploring Packet Tracer. So there's a series of different classes that are available, not really classes, but different learning items you can grab inside of Skills for All. Now, right now, you're not able to create classes and put your students in it. Your students can just go there and take classes themselves. But soon, they're going to put the ability for you to come in here, find your actual Cisco Academy, and create a class that your students can put, that you can put your students into here. The negative is it's not going to show up inside of Netstat. So when you get, well, not yet. So you go in here to I'm teaching, it's not going to show your Skills for All classes. You're going to have to go between these two for now. But this shows you all the different classes. Well, I don't call them classes. I call them learning modules. But you've got Introduction to Cybersecurity, Exploring the Internet of Things with Cisco Packet Tracer, Cybersecurity Essentials, which is actually the one directly from the Cisco Netstat site. But then they've got this cyber threat management, network defense, and endpoint security. And there's nothing like that in our actual Netstat right now. So just throw that out there, some additional learning things that you may want to consider looking at for your students. For you, Ernie, taking the Packet Tracer, I just wanted to mention it because you're doing this 2-hour getting started with Packet Tracer. There's a couple other Packet Tracer items that you could actually do inside of here in the catalog that would be available to you. So different, because there's the Packet Tracer getting started, there's Exploring the Internet of Things, and then there's actually a Packet Tracer, more advanced Packet Tracer. Oops. There's also a cool thing that I like, which actually shows like how to use or how to get a job in or what the life is of a security professional. So 105 minutes on how what a security professional does day in, day out. Which is, may not be something bad to show to all your students that are in security.
So Kelly, all these courses are free for the student if they register?
Yes,
Oh, that's,
yep, completely free.
oh, okay. That's good.
So it goes all the way through. So it's an hour and 45 minutes. So that's a long one, but you can put your students in it and ask that they review it for classwork. So, but this is the newest thing. There's going to be a lot of it on instructor professional development. Speaking of which, I will mention to you that don't forget that as a Cisco Networking Academy instructor, one of the things we have under instructor professional development is IPD week. IPD week is coming up. In fact, it is going to be February 28th through March 4th. If you have not enrolled, the way to enroll is you go to resources, instructor professional development, click on the IPD week page, and then enroll. And I'm already enrolled, so it should tell me I'm already enrolled. And then you go to my I'm learning and you will see IPD week. So there's the IPD week. And then you can go in, and on February 28th through March 4th, they actually have live sessions that you can go through and watch. And you'll be able to register if you want to look at, there's 3 different program updates, and then look at your they've got a whole thing on skills for all. They got another thing on Postman if you want to look at REST APIs. JavaScript Essentials 101, because we've got a new JavaScript class. If you weren't aware of it, there is now a Program Essentials in JavaScript course inside of NetAcad. So yeah, if you weren't aware of that, there's now a course called JavaScript Essentials that's available. Okay, it maps to a Open EDG certification, JSE entry-level JavaScript programmer. All right. I also mentioned to you, we've recently worked with Open EDG. They now have a way for your students to take the PCAP exam at your school without having to go to a View Prometric testing center. Your school just has to apply to be a testing center, and then you have to meet the requirements, and then they can test there at your school. It still costs money to take the test, but then your students will not have to go and actually go to a View testing center, which has been very important for our high schools. So it's a very good option for our high schools. I quite honestly did not even think about the fact that high school students may not have an ID, a driver's license, a government ID, because when we were in school, you turned 16, the day you turned 16, you went and got a driver's license. Or as soon as you could. Now nobody has a driver's license, which is insane. My personal opinion is insane. But.
I don't know. I turned 16, went and failed the test.
Well, that happens too. I remember I turned 16 on a Sunday, and I was so mad because I had to wait the Monday to go get my license. So, okay. Anybody have any questions?